Presenting Nicole Smith, founder and CEO of JMS Creative Leadership Solutions, whose 20-plus years experience spans across consulting, training, and coaching org leaders across levels and industries. She was the #1 best-selling author of a short, easy-to-read book called 20 Golden Leadership Nuggets. A passionate speaker and coach, she strives to help people enjoy the journey of becoming the best version of themselves. Welcoming Nicole Smith to talk to us about resuming the playback, leveraging your emotional power.
Are you using your emotions to inform you or derail you or simply control you? I just spoke with someone the other day where she said the pandemic made her stop and rethink things. And she seemed very agitated that this was happening, though. Her having to self-reflect, that is. But let's change the perspective. Let's put some power to these emotions you are feeling. I know it felt like in HR you couldn't pause. But let's think of this time as more of the power of the pause. There is power in pausing to reflect, to become more self-aware, to help our relationships, and to unlock potential and create a greater impact personally and professionally. Hi, I'm Nicole Smith, and it is a pleasure to be with everyone today. I am sure we can all agree that the year 2020 has taught us many things, but one thing we probably haven't thought about is how we are handling this year emotionally, or even better, how to leverage those emotions going into 2021. What does rise above 2020 mean to you? Does it mean finding calm in a stressful world? Or how to be happier despite what is going on around you this year? Or how to press the reset button, or even the fast forward button would be great right about now. But what if I said rise above 2020 could mean leveraging all the emotions, your emotional intelligence or emotional information thrown at you, and use it for good versus using it against you? Let's get your mind out of crisis mode. As Abraham Lincoln said, most folks are usually about as happy as they make their mind up to be. Experts know that our emotions, especially the positive ones, are strongly connected to how you rebound from setbacks. They also know everyone can get better at it. How to leverage those emotions to keep your emotional power in check and to work for you. What if I was to say, practice your emotions? Would you do it? I mean, would you actually practice your emotions, your mindfulness to improve your mindset, to gain emotional strength and power? Feeling great is a habit you can build, and your habits do determine your future. The latest science says you can train your brain. Your brain is very malleable, but you can train your brain to better understand when you're having a hard time. And 2020 has been hard for many of us all over the world. You want to choose the emotions you want to feel more of and practice them until you do. When you are not conscious of your emotions or self-aware of them, you are at their mercy, and they can dictate your behavior for better or for worse, hence giving away your power. So as Oscar Wilde stated, I don't want to be at the mercy of my emotions. I want to use them, to enjoy them, and to dominate them. There are many methods to help your emotions not derail you. That's good, right? These emotions can cause stress, and we humans know that we get stressed more than we realize. The dealings with a poor leader, an argument with the spouse or partner, monthly bills, those are normal stressors, right? But now that we are heavy into the pandemic, some of us a second round of the pandemic, and in more areas than others, some of us are dealing with economic disruption, workplace disruption, family disruption with kids learning from home. And as parents or guardians, we are now the teachers. If you are a leader in the workplace, I bet you've been tested more than ever in your leadership competencies, haven't you? These stressors are all registered in the brain, and our brain has to determine how to manage it, including the thoughts and the emotions that come with all of this. My friends, stress is everywhere. Many of us are facing one or more traumatic stressors during their lifetime. And for many of us, it is the pandemic. But for many of us, the countless smaller stresses take a toll. And at times it feels as if there are threats everywhere, real or even imagined, and the body and the mind react accordingly in a number of ways. Well, but what does all this mean? 2020 is a year that has caused us to be in different boats, but within the same storm. The globe is dealing with the COVID pandemic, but there are other issues that we've all been dealing with that make us evaluate what normal even looks like for 2021. Do we even want to go back to normal? That's a big question. We are now entering a new world, a new era. We seem to be learning our way into a new structure of feeling. The depth of feeling seems a lot like mindfulness. We must now focus on the present moment and how to move forward. But how do we do that? We must now take a chance to make a serious change, have courage to make a serious change. That will not only help our mindset personally, but also our mindset in the workplace, making us more productive and efficient. We have the opportunity to change the way we live. We have an opportunity to leverage all of this change. Our perspective on humanity has now changed. And of course, how we do work and business moving forward has changed. How to do this? How to leverage your emotional power and use it to fuel you forward, rising above 2020. The first tip I have for you is to create a gap or space between the stimulus and the response. Some breathing space, some wiggle room. You want to respond appropriately versus reacting irrationally. You want to determine how to use the emotional information that is coming to you as your power. One way you can do this is through the power of the pause, as stated earlier. As emotional information comes your way, as these stressors appear to take over your present mindfulness, I challenge you to pause and determine how I can respond appropriately and not react irrationally. I want you to keep the power to choose your response. And this also demonstrates growth and resilience, which we will talk about in a few minutes. So let's talk about this a little bit more. What is the purpose of emotions? It is to cope with life challenges. It is to gain self-awareness and a keen sense of perception and leverage emotional information and determine how to use it We're emotional creatures. We have emotional information, or as I would say, 11 million bits of emotional information coming to us all day long. So now we have to determine how to use it. We are hardwired, my friends, to be negative. So yes, it takes time and energy for us to be at peace and have contentment. So why do you want to give that power away? We need emotions to survive. We can have thoughts, which create emotions. Okay, that creates emotions, but most of us allow us to be emotionally fit, emotionally agile, and emotionally powerful. Your emotions or feelings are an integral aspect of who you are, good, bad, and everything in between. Yet you may not have been taught how to navigate those emotional upsets in a productive and compassionate way. So the end result is often explosive. And when you learn to accept your emotions, to lean into them, that's what we're afraid of, to lean into them and be present with them in a healthy way. You can learn from them and begin to use them as a means of growing and thriving in your purpose. Being courageous enough to, as I said, lean into them. With emotional agility, you are being aware and accepting of all your emotions, even learning from the different ones. Emotional agility is the ability to manage your emotion and thoughts in a way that makes you more effective at what you're doing. Dr. Susan David developed this concept of emotional agility after studying emotions, happiness, and achievement. And being emotionally agile, especially in the times we're in today, does allow you to be more dynamic, flexible, tolerant, high levels of stress, endure setbacks. Yet you can still be engaged, open, and receptive. Dr. David also states that the way we respond to these internal experiences drives our actions, careers, relationships, happiness, health, everything that matters in our life. So I ask, during this time, what makes a professional like yourself resilient in the face of massive change, personally and professionally? Because do you know, my friends, what affects you personally flows into your professional life and vice versa. And what makes an insecure leader like yourself at times rise to the occasion? Often the answer boils down to the way you navigate and manage your emotions. You don't let your anxiety take over. This is where that power of the pause comes in. Okay, but you lean into that adrenaline to move past those barriers. You devote extra time to stress management and remind yourself of all the preparation you've done for these type of moments. You've prepared for this, believe it or not. This helps build emotional agility. This helps you build resilience when facing so much change that we're facing right now. So positive emotions do drive us to success, helps us make better decisions, reduce the risk of disease, and does allow us to live longer. So let's talk about that power, all right? The power of determination will get you over the humps and hurdles of your day and will see you through the most amazing challenges. With the power of excitement, you can choose to live with passion and purpose, and you can cultivate excitement in your daily routines and experiences. With power of appreciating gratitude, we all know we often don't know what we got until it's gone. So let's be grateful for it while it's here. Flexibility is the key to rolling with the punches, bouncing back from these setbacks, ability to change your approach and rise above your circumstances. My friends, just to let you know, they are measuring flexibility as a leadership competency. How flexible are you in your approach, or are you dead set on the path that you're on? Your confidence will help you operate at a higher level and put new possibilities within your grasp. Practicing confidence consistently builds that confidence, and you'll be amazed at the dividends it reaps in every area of your life. Cheerfulness enhances your self-esteem and makes life just more fun, and makes people around you feel happier as well. A sense of vitality can lift you to new levels of personal power and radiance. And when you have a sense of contribution, we amplify our feelings of empowerment, as well as our feelings of fulfillment. Connecting to the greater good brings with such powerful sense of abundance. But my friends, as we work together at work and at home through what seems to be a never-ending test, the most powerful emotion we can have to leverage is our power of empathy. Our power of empathy for others, it doesn't necessarily lead others to change their behavior. And I do not want you to have that expectation, but it does help you better navigate difficult situations and learn about ourselves. Empathy is feeling someone else's pain in your heart, focusing on others, which is the foundation of empathy, and an ability to build social relationships at home and at work. It leads to compassion, which is empathy in action, a commitment to doing something that relieves someone else's suffering. The power of empathy, however, can make your own life better. Empathy can open your heart, letting in more feelings, but also softening some of the tough experience. When we embrace the concepts of empathy and well-being in our work life, we've reaped many benefits, from enhanced focus and concentration to improved resilience to stress and greater creativity. Another emotional power we have, as I stated earlier, was the power of resilience. Let's gain resilience in 2021. In 2020, we've been practicing the power of resilience. You're able to calm your frantic mind. And after encountering a negative experience, after you can calm your mind. It's motivation. It's an inner force by which we can hold ourselves to the downsides of life challenges. According to Kaplan, Turner, Norman, and Stilson, resilience is the capacity to maintain competent functioning in the face of major life stressors. Remember when I asked you if you could practice your emotions? Well, here's an example. A quote I've heard: resilience is a muscle. Flex it enough and it will take less effort to get over the emotional punches each time. Emotional resilience is not about winning the battle. It's the strength of power through the storm, and it still keeps the sail steady. So let's change our perspective on resilience. It's not about a bend, don't break trait. Rather, resilience is accepting the fact, my friends, that I or we are broken and continuing to grow with the broken pieces together. Practice self-awareness, emotional control, persistence, and as I stated earlier, flexible thinking. When we're resilient, we not only adapt ourselves to stress and disappointments, we also grow the insight to avoid actions that might lead us to face such situations. So I want you to see how you can even see the power in emotions, even in the negative ones, helping you form arguments, having better information, being more attuned to the situation at hand. Improve your memory, okay? Do you know you tend to remember more on a cold, gloomy day when you're not feeling exuberant on a happy, sunny day? Okay, also research shows that when we're not in a good mood, we're less likely to incorporate misleading information. Encourage perseverance. When you're feeling great, why push yourself? When you're in a somber mood, you'll try to answer more questions and get them right. It can help you walk away. People in negative moods pay more attention to fairness and are far more apt to reject unfair offers. And you boost your ability to reason. Anger produces a nail the opposition mentality that encourages us to leave the door open to be better persuaded. So instead of allowing the negative emotions to cause emotional exhaustion, depersonalization with a cynical attitude, or have a low sense of personal accomplishment, overall burnout, let's shift that perspective, our mindset, and use the negative emotions to fuel us forward in 2021, rising above 2020. So what is power? Power is the ability to use strength quickly. Your personal power is the ability to take action. No human can be happy 24/7. Maybe that's the happiest news of all. It's not to say that bad things don't happen or that you should pretend everything is amazing when it isn't. It's healthy to feel negative emotions than involving them. The idea is that you can harness the energy of positive emotions and empowering interpretations to grow and evolve even through these challenging times. Increasing self-awareness, your emotional agility, increasing your emotional fitness helps with humility and to understand and acknowledge your own shortcomings. In fact, it's one of the surest signs of high emotional intelligence. So I want you to harness your power in your emotions, make them work for you versus against you. May this be a turning point in history. May this turn us towards greater emotional fitness and agility in each of us, and celebrate together as we leverage this power and rise above 2020. Let's change the way we look at 2020. Don't let this crisis go to waste. Do not let other social issues go to waste. Let's take advantage of all that is swarming around us. This is a time for self-reflection, my friends. By now, we've crossed the threshold of anxiety. Give yourself a pat on the back. If you're having a hard time finding power in your emotions, find strength in others who have this power. They are being resilient, and see how to leverage this emotion. So here we are. Remember, I asked the questions at the beginning. Are you using emotions to inform you or derail you? Inform you or control you? Being hooked to certain emotions serves a purpose sometimes for survival and sometimes for comfort. But emotional power begins at the end of your comfort zone. So choose courage over comfort. The year 2020 has uncovered what really matters. It has taught us great lessons on how to take our emotions, our feelings, and understand how they impact our personal life, but also how they greatly impact our professional life. I challenge you, my friends, to go into 2021 and leverage your emotional power personally and professionally. Unlock your potential and create a greater impact even as you move through these challenging times. So, my friends, I see that there are some questions. I'm going to go through these questions as best as I can, and just let my co-host know if you need further explanation and so forth, or just let her know that I answered your question. So the first question is, virtual connects often do not convey true emotions. People come across as guarded or untrue. How do you advise we navigate? Being virtual, even though you are virtual and you're on cameras, just as I am today, you can still be self-expressive. You can still show your emotions. So if you're on with your team, if you can, show your camera, show your face, turn on your camera so people can see your emotion and see your body language, because virtually people show their emotions through their body language. But also to my leaders, to my people leaders, have one-on-one time with your colleagues, with your employees, to truly see how they're doing during this time. Be genuine and be intent in your conversation to truly understand how they're feeling, okay? Understand how they're feeling. So even virtually, you can still interpret people's emotions, how they're feeling. What are the ways through which emotional intelligence can be utilized at workplace? There's many ways. So just in regards to emotional intelligence, it is the #1 competency for leaders. That's what we're looking for today in leadership. What I've noticed in 2020, emotional intelligence is the focus on self-awareness this year. Self-awareness, understanding how you feel, understanding all the emotions that come towards you. And like I said, responding appropriately versus reacting irrationally. But also too, the other competency that I'm seeing within emotional intelligence, as I stated, was empathy. We need to have serious lessons on empathy and understand, as I said earlier, that we are in different boats, but we are all in the same storm, specifically in regards to the COVID pandemic. Okay, so just emotional intelligence, self-awareness, increasing self-awareness, and increasing your empathy. There's lots of methods and there's lots of ways. So if you want to contact me outside of this, I'll be happy to share those ways with you. How does emotional intelligence help employees cope with the high demands and pressures at work? Having a higher sense of self-awareness lets you understand how you deal with stress. Okay, helping increase your emotional intelligence helps you deal with all that emotional information that is coming your way. Because remember, I said, put a gap between the stimulus and your response. Give yourself some breathing room to actually label the emotion that you are feeling. This is having a high emotional intelligence. You are able to label the feeling and the emotion that you are feeling at that time. Let it process, and then decide how to respond. So emotional intelligence we actually measure that in the assessments that I give out in my practice. We measure how well you manage stress. If you have a low emotional intelligence, yes, it will be harder for you to manage that because you don't have a keen sense of self-awareness. What's more valuable in the workplace, IQ or EQ? This is interesting. You know, EQ and IQ they're not related. However, there are stats that show having a higher level of EQ, you will have 10 times more employee engagement rate at work. There's research out there that shows having a higher EQ, you make an average more of $29,000 a year than someone that has a low EQ. There's also stats out there that show leaders that have a high IQ and a low EQ are not as successful as the opposite, as vice versa. So EQ is beginning to show itself as being a high leadership competency to be productive, successful, and maintain those social relationships that you have to build at work. Being emotional, is it an asset or a liability to the HR function? That's a tricky one. It's an asset in regards to being emotional. This is where we tell our people, our colleagues, bring your whole self to work. They're going to bring emotions too. But if you have a keen understanding and a keen perception on how you handle your emotions, it's an asset because it helps you build trust and rapport with your employees. Where it's a liability is if you have low emotional intelligence, you do not know how to cope with your emotions. And for example, you just constantly fly off the handle. You always are showing a negative emotion where you don't know how to use that negative emotion. But also remember, there's power in those positive emotions too. Both negative and positive are shown at work. How you respond to those emotions is an asset, but it can be a liability if the emotions are used against you, if that makes sense. With a distributed workforce and remote working, assessing emotions can be tricky. How do you do that in the current operating context? I think I kind of answered that earlier with you being remote. Having rules of engagement when you are working with your virtual team, having cameras on, making sure everyone feels included on the virtual calls, the virtual meetings, but also too as leaders, making sure that don't use your team meetings as the only form of communication to your teams. Make sure you do reach out to your individual colleagues and see how they're doing. Is there anything they need? As a leader, what can I do to help remove obstacles so you can be the best version of yourself at work? Many people tend to get overwhelmed with emotions. It's not super professional to lean into your tears in a meeting. What is your advice, and how can you temporarily suppress these emotions? This is where I said, if you feel yourself becoming emotional in what I would say a negative sense, you're hurt, you feel tears and so forth. There's actually science behind why people cry. There are people that cry due to being nervous, due to being upset. But also too, if you feel those emotions, this is where the power of the pause comes in. Everyone has a right to say, can we discuss this at a later time? Can you give me 5 minutes? Can you give me 10 minutes? Can I gather more information regarding this and I'll get back to you? We are so quick to respond. I want everyone to take advantage of the power of the pause. Put a space in between that stimulus and that response, and that will allow you to respond appropriately and not react irrationally. Okay. There's some questions that, oh, wow, there's a lot of questions. How do you actually remember to pause? It takes practice. Practice that emotion. Practice it. Practice. Power of the pause. This is where you talk to yourself and say, Nicole, take a minute. Trust me, my friends, this is a journey. This is truly a journey. It will not happen tomorrow. Okay. And my friends, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure and an honor to be with you today. Thank you.